Going to be removing the Screaming Eagle springs and keepers, keeping the valve seals and the valves that these particular heads came with. Going to be using Star Racing springs and keepers. These are titanium. These here to 3/4 Star Racing cam.
Look at the size of that. And away we go.
Okay. These are fully assembled. We're going to be doing the end play of the crankshaft because this is a new assembly. This is part of the requirements that S&S has in its instructions. So here's the original spacers that went in there. Get these guys all in. Get the stator rotor in place. I'll stand it up and we'll see if we have between 3 and 13 thousandths of an inch in end play, which is what the instructions call for. Here in the first run, I've got 10 thousandths with the stock spacer. So the end play maintains its 10 thousandths, which is within the 3 to 13 thousandths that S&S is requiring. Now I'm going to pull the case back apart, put the sealant in there, put the seal in the left side of the case here, put the counterbalancers in, and reassemble. Also want to add, if you ever take these apart and you notice where the weight is, you can see that the bearing wears heavy on both sides of that shaft, where there's not so much here, and there's so much more wear there again. That is conducive on both shafts. In my eyes, that's a reason not to put them in. Multiple places have multiple things to say about that. S&S swears that this thing will walk away at an idle if you don't put the counterbalancers in. Some shops take the S&S flywheels and balance them and make them even stronger than what S&S offers. And then they don't use counterbalancers, all dependent on the blueprint of the engine as well. Dark Horse doesn't use them with theirs. You change their bearing, you change the flat bearing to a Timken bearing, and you don't use the counterbalancers in that. And they swear it's a real smooth ride. We're just going to go with putting these back in. It's S&S's recommendations, so that's where we're going to go. Nut. I do. Now we got the bottom end installed, and I also put the pistons on. We got ourselves our torque custom cycles and which way they're pointing. Gonna wash the cylinders now. It's a major thing to do when installing new pistons and cylinders is to take the cylinders themselves, wash them over and over again with soap and water until they're 100% clean. Soak them down with assembly oil and put them on. That ensures a good seal and no bullshit. Okay, I'm starting the process of installing the cylinders over the pistons. Rear cylinder has been cleaned and obviously lubed and installed, and now I'm going to move on to the front cylinder. Okay, I just want to note that the oil pump is in. I install it one piece at a time. It's a multi-layer S&S pump. I do it one piece at a time to keep the O-rings from tearing in there. And now we're going to do 24 and 36 pounds on the on torque per crank and camshaft. So what we're looking for here is when we put the lifter guides in, is setting a 2/1000 feeler gauge between both sides of one lifter when torquing the bolt down. The bolt gets blue Loctite and it gets 12 foot-pounds of torque. What you'll find is that when you spin the engine over, each lifter will rise and then fall on its own, under its own weight. You should not be able to push it back down. If you do, that means you need to reset the guide. And with that being said, the cam compartment is all buttoned up. Everybody's torqued down to 120 inch-pounds across here and here. 9-finger lifter block plugs. Now we're going to start doing the heads. Okay, both heads, both of these heads from Fuel Moto have been gone through. The Star Racing springs again have been installed. All the sensors are put in. I'm just waiting for my delivery of the S&S head nuts to come here so I can finally do the torque of the top end. I do want to add that these coming from Fuel Moto, even though they were already prepared and stuff, these are pre-used heads, pre-owned heads. It seems like all of them that come out of there. So there are some nicks and damaged edges of the fins on these heads here in comparison to his original ones, which I will say is an annoyance. But either which way, they're CNC machined. They're definitely going to flow way better than what was on here. And a little added input, all 4 spark plugs have been indexed, so
that helps the performance as well.
Oh, then the head nuts here get anti-seize in the thread. You get a little layer of grease along the flange, and that gets a true torque.
When torquing the heads down, they want you to start at 10 foot-pounds. Then they want you to go up to 20 foot-pounds, then 30, then 35, and for the final torque is 45. They want you to go in a crisscross pattern.
Okay, the whole intake is back together, torqued down, and everybody's plugged in. Now we're gonna go ahead and finish assembling the push rod tubes and getting all the rocker arms in. Starting with that is the fueling top end strengthening kit, which is essentially just a stud and a nut. You got a double nut the top of these, throw a little Loctite on there, and with it being double nutted, they get torqued down to 5 foot-pounds, and then you can go ahead and throw your rockers in there. Makes the top end a lot more sturdy, keeps shit from breaking. Okay, primary is back together. You got the Moeller power clutch ball and ramp assembly in here for an easier clutch. And all we got to do is just finish off our rear fender. He had the fender struts powder coated. So I need to put the rear fender on, the seat, the tank, and the exhaust, foot controls. And that's it.
Okay, I got my my dyno workbench here, and we are reassembling Aron's rear wheel for his lowrider ST132. So he has custom wheels that have been, or stock wheels that have been customized with a hydro dip, and he's also had the pulley powder coated. The purpose of this video here is I want to be able to explain to you folks that if you have your wheels customized and you're looking for a quality job, in other words, when the wheel is put back together, that everything sits 100% straight and true and won't ever come loose, here's some things to look for. Around the bolt holes, we want to make sure that we're back down to aluminum. When we got this back from powder coat, obviously the entire thing was powder coated except for the inner hole. You want the inner hole free of powder because that's what sits around this flange or the spigot here on the wheel, okay? And the bolt, where the bolt washers land. If there's powder in here, that can all again sand away and allow the pulley, maybe not the bolt so much, but the pulley to become loose. The other thing is the direct surface right here, right where the pulley lands on both sides, bare aluminum, aluminum, aluminum. No custom material to go in there. Again, it will wither away and you'll have a loose pulley. And this I have to be extra sure of because Aron will be pushing a little bit more than stock horsepower. And we don't want any of these things to come loose, and we want them to stay nice. We want them to stay as custom as they are for as long as it can possibly stay. Okay, the next thing to ensure that this isn't coming loose ever again, a little bit of Loctite. The difference in what we're doing here is, if you notice some previous blue Loctite that was used in here, which is way too weak of a compound, we need red. Number one, I'm not putting it on the bolts. What'll happen is when we turn the bolt in, it'll just sit up top here and it won't actually go all the way in, and it can still cause the pulley to come loose. You notice there's a common equation there. So, okay. A couple of drops down the sidewall. 1, 2, 3. Take a straight pick, spread that all around those thread holes. There you go. Now, that is going to ensure that this is what's going to hold these bolts in. Loctite's going to do what it's supposed to do inside of the time frame it's supposed to do it. Extra off the tops there. Over the pulley. Them holes. Grade 8 steel zinc coated bolts. Okay, again, as I said, they're grade 8 steel bolts at 7/16 14. They call for 49 pounds as a max torque. I'm going to go with 45 pounds on each bolt. And the star pattern, of course. One more pass for the old sake of good luck, you know? So that one had a little turn. Oops. Yeah. That ain't coming off. Okay, Aron's bike is all back together. Everything's all in there, tidied back up. We're ready to fire it up for the first time. She's a beaut.